Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Over the period in which we were celebrating Shri Krishna Janmashtami, I spoke on the topic, who is Krishna? If we ask this question to various people, what will be their reply? And I started off with the Mayavadis and other demons, but I didn't finish the lecture. It gradually came up. I didn't finish the lecture, but I finished it this morning, and coming up through the various levels of devotees. We came up to the residents of Vrindavan, and Gopis and Srimati Radharani. Very exalted topics. What are the feelings of the Gopis for Krishna? What do the Gopis think about Krishna? These are very exalted topics, yeah. This is the summation of all spiritual knowledge given in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. In the first canto, we have topics which are more suitable for beginners. A beginner in Bhakti is an advanced position. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mang prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. After many births, someone may come to someone who's striving to attain knowledge, may come to the realization that Krishna is all in all, and thus surrender to Him. Such a great soul is very rare. To come to the position of even thinking about surrendering to Krishna is a very high spiritual attainment. The Bhagavatam is specifically meant for persons who are interested in Krishna. In the beginning of Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva opens the door for the Paramahamsas and closes it on the various grades of non-devotees by stating Dharma projita kaitava atra paramo nirmatsarano satam. He states who this Bhagavatam is meant for. Not meant for people who are interested in anything but Krishna. People who have any topic of interest, whose life is based on anything but wanting to love Krishna, to serve Krishna. This Bhagavatam is not meant for them. It's meant for the topmost Paramahamsas. So the first canto of Bhagavatam, and actually first 9 cantos, to a large extent, prepare the reader, or more likely the hearer. Traditionally, Bhagavatam is heard. Not so read, yes, but heard and explained. For entering into the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, in which the precious topics of the gopis' love for Krishna are described, but it requires some preparation to enter in there. But what kind of preparation we have to enter into the topics of Bhagavatam are described in the first canto, especially in the second chapter. I'll read one verse with Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport, which gives succinctly the necessary mental preparation that is required to even begin to enter the topics of Bhagavatam. This is the 10th verse of the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Kamasya nindriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nartho yascheha karma vihi. You got that? 1st canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 10. And it's easier to read the translation than to translate it yourself. Because although Prabhupada's purports are relatively simple, each word is packed with meaning. So they're not such easy books to translate, actually, even though the language is quite simple. Have you had that experience, any of you? Translating? They're simple English, but in each sentence there's so much depth and profundity. So the translation of this verse. Life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. Purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. Do you all know what that means, sense gratification? Those who read Prabhupada's books know what it means. Everyone else in the world knows what it is, but they don't know what it means. Their life, if we rephrase this verse from the non-devotee's perspective, the first line we'll read, life's desires should certainly be directed towards sense gratification. Just the opposite. Sense gratification means yehi samsparshaja bhoga, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. It means the interaction of the senses with the sense objects for the sake of enjoyment. If you didn't understand that, well, let's consider it a little bit more. The senses of seeing, touching, smelling, feeling, hearing, tasting, they interact with the sense objects. Seeing. What do we see? We like to see. A man likes to see a beautiful woman. We like to taste. What's famous food? Better not ask. Famous food in Switzerland. Better not ask. Yeah, whatever it is. I think we better not say. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound too auspicious. Alright, okay. Hare Krishna. Danke. I know one word of German. I know two more words of German. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Best words in German. Contributed by Srila Prabhupada. So, we like to hear. In the modern age, people like what they call music is some kind of, something like these machines they use for smashing the roads. They call that music. They get some pleasure out of that. So we like to hear something. It gives us some pleasure. Something that gives us some pleasure. Everyone likes to hear the sound of their own name, isn't it? If you hear someone speaking and they say your name, immediately, oh, what are they saying? Oh, they're taking notice of me. Oh, very nice. Krishna's like that too. That's why it's good to chant his name, and Krishna becomes pleased with us. So, like this, the yehi samsparshaja bhoga, the senses are constantly interacting with the sense objects. Just like now I am looking at you and seeing all of you, and most of you are looking at me and seeing me, and I don't think you get any sense gratification out of that. And hearing. Now you are utilizing your hearing. You could be listening to the sound of pneumatic drill, or what they call music. Sounds like a... Or you could be listening to something very cultural. Any famous Swiss composers, many German and Austrian famous composers, right? Mozart, Haydn, J.S. Bach, Beethoven, so many. Swiss? Any? No. Anyway. That's more cultured than techno rock. But it's also for sense gratification. Actually, some of it was in praise of God, right? A lot of the classical music, Bach, J.S. Bach, yeah, famous, very cultured actually compared to Mozart also. Yeah. Was it? And Beethoven was mostly secular. He believed in God, but his music wasn't particularly in praise of God. Yeah.
He said that sound which does not glorify God is a devil's affair.
Really?
Yeah, he said that.
J.S. Bach, Johann Sebastian. He said the sound which does not praise God is a devil's sound. See? So it's better than techno rock. Definitely better. So all the time the senses are interacting with the sense objects. And mostly people, they do so for the sake of the devil. Of course, Maya. Not exactly devil. In Krishna consciousness we don't find any devil as such. There's no someone jumping around holding a little fork with a tail coming out. But there is our attraction to Maya, to illusion. So, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga, that interaction of the senses with the sense objects for the sake of enjoyment, dukkha yonya evate. It is the cause of distress. That's strange, isn't it? You're doing everything for pleasure, but it actually causes distress. Well, look around. Look at the world. Look at our own lives. Whatever we do for the sake of pleasure, it is adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha. From beginning to end and in the middle also, it's simply a cause of distress. Therefore, an intelligent person does not take part in it. Which is why, here in this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, that verse I just quoted here, Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga, it's from Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. And here we have Shonakadi Rishi, the instruction, that life's desires should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. I already read that, now I read it twice. We can read it many times. We should read it many times. So I'll read the purport again, start again. Because every line in Srila Prabhupada's books is capable of giving a completely new and better way of looking at the world for everybody. I'm not saying this, generally people, they're like dogmatic religionists, right? But just consider, you may be an atheist, a Buddhist, a Shaiva, or a Christian, or just consider, this what is being given here is not dogmatic religionism. This is scientific knowledge of the state of human society. So I'll read the first sentence again of the purport. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires and sense gratification. So, Srila Prabhupada, in one line, he says the material civilization, pointing out, civilization is materialistic. It's not taking advice from Johann Sebastian Bach. It's completely bewildered. Now, if we say that in Switzerland, people might be a little upset. No, we're Swiss. We know what we're doing. We're the best. We don't go around boasting, but we all know we're the best people in the world. All the money of the world comes here, and we're very cultured people with our, what's that thing they eat? Don't say it too loud. So, but actually completely bewildered, because they do not know the aim of life. They're wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. So now, what is this? Is this Buddhism? In Buddhism, they say that desire is the... did I offend someone? Well, welcome back to Switzerland. Outside is Switzerland. In here, we have something else going on. So, the Buddhists say that desire is the root of all suffering. Therefore, we should stop all desire. Does that make sense? Sounds like it makes sense, right? Desire is the cause of all suffering. Therefore, we should stop all suffering. Stop all desire. And become nothing. But here Srila Prabhupada writes that the completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. Prabhupada doesn't say to stop all desires. He says that the society is bewildered, wrongly directed toward the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. He doesn't say stop desire, but he said that the direction is toward the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. So, in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a lot of discussion about desire, how desire causes us many problems. We find in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks a very good question. A question which anyone who wants to be good, this question will confront them. That atakena prayuktoyam papam charti purusha aniccham apivarshnaya baladiva niyojitaha. Arjuna asks that why is it that we act wrongly even though we don't want to? We know it's wrong, but still we do wrong things, almost as if we're forced. Why is that? And Krishna gives the answer in over several verses. The first verse, actually the first word of the verse in reply is the answer, and the rest of the verse is an expansion of that. He says, Kama, desire. Kama esha. Krodha esha. It is desire. Anger. Rajoguna samudbhavaha. Born of the mode of passion, or the mode of passion means the very mode or the whole mindset of desire, material desire. Mahashano mahapatma vidye namiha vairinam. It is like a great fire. It's very sinful, and we should know that this is our enemy. So the enemy is desire. That which causes us to do wrong is desire. But Krishna doesn't say stop desiring, because it's not possible to stop desiring. If we think I should stop desiring, then we're desiring to stop desire. We're caught in a trap. It's not possible. If we don't desire to stop desire, then we can't stop desire. And if we do desire to stop desire, then we're also desiring something. So it's not possible. So does that mean that we have to suffer eternally? No, we have to know how to make our desire in such a way that desire will be beneficial for us and not detrimental. So this is the difference between Krishna consciousness and Buddhism. Actually, Buddhism, chronologically speaking, came out of the Vedic culture. And all the words which are used, all the technical or philosophical words in Buddhism. They're all taken from the Vedic culture. Just like the word nirvana is very famous. That's entered the English language and probably the German language also, isn't it? If you say nirvana, it doesn't need any explanation. It's taken from Buddhism. It's the state in which it's difficult to explain because it doesn't really make any sense, but you just kind of become nothing. So, but that word is there in Bhagavad Gita, which predates Buddhism. But the idea of becoming nothing, if you have no desire, then you become nothing, right? But it's not possible to be nothing, because we are something. We're not what we think we are, but we are something. So the whole clue is to change our desire from desiring sense gratification to desiring Krishna's sense gratification. Krishna is, in the words of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the transcendental autocrat. Autocrat. You have the same word in German? It's a difficult. He's a dictator. He's God. He's a dictator. But not a despot. You know what a despot means? It means a bad dictator. He's not a Saddam Hussein. Now they forgot. When they killed him and they forgot him. And someone else will come. But Krishna, He's the supreme controller, and Jare Joiche Nache Tare Toiche Korenitya. Everyone dances according to the way he pulls the strings. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Shabhabrita. There's one controller, he is Krishna, and all others are his servants. And Jare Joiche Nachai Tare Toiche Korenitya. And the way he makes everyone dance, they dance. So Krishna is the supreme controller, He's the supreme enjoyer, and all other living beings are meant for His enjoyment. So desire should be directed toward pleasing Krishna. You may think, why? I'll just do what I like for my own enjoyment. But by doing so, we simply create suffering. And by serving Krishna, because Krishna is the supreme controller, whether we like it or not, we can go on a protest. We don't want to be controlled. We want democracy. We want equal rights. But there's no equal rights with God. There's never going to be a time when we have the same rights as God. The only right we have is to choose to serve Him or not to serve Him. And if we serve Him, then we get in harmony with Him. Then everything, because that is our constitutional position. It is not a demeaning or degrading position. People generally think, I don't like to be a servant. Everyone should be free. Previously, in Europe, most of the people were serfs. I don't know the German word. Means they were like slaves, almost like slaves. And then gradually there became democracy. In the beginning, democracy in Greece and Rome, and they had democracy. It was only for a few people in ancient Greece and Rome. And then, at least I was born in England, so we were taught that democracy started in England. Probably in Switzerland they teach it, started in Switzerland. But gradually there was the Magna Carta, which was signed in 1200 and something. I wasn't so good in history. In Runnymede, in which some of the British nobles, they forced King John or something to sign something, which meant that the king was no longer an absolute dictator. He gave some power to the nobles, the noble meat eaters, the noblemen. And then gradually the people underneath the noblemen, they thought, the next layer down thought, well, they pulled the king down and put themselves in. Hey, we want to get in there too. And gradually the next layer came up, and eventually everyone got the vote. And even women got the vote. I mean, in the 19th century they didn't even have souls. in the 19th century women got souls and then they got the vote, and now they're heads of countries and they have the right to go and fight in Iraq and all kinds of things that women didn't used to do. They have the right to go and blow people's brains out and get their own brains blown out in reciprocation. So, there's no question of pulling down Krishna. You can protest and say, come and sign this letter. But there's nothing. There's just nothing we can do. He's an absolute dictator. But fortunately, he's not corrupt. He's not exploited. Krishna loves us more than we love ourselves. He wants us to be happy. But happiness is only possible in our constitutional position, which is of service to Him. It's very difficult for people to understand this. That's why Bahunam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many, many births, someone who's searching after knowledge comes to the accept that Krishna is all in all and surrenders unto Him. Why should it be so difficult? It shouldn't be very difficult to understand that there is a supreme controller, there is God, we are not God, we should surrender to Him, but it takes many, many births. Just because we're so stubborn. Instead of thinking, Vasudeva Sarvam, Krishna is everything, I'm everything. I'm the most important person. Isn't it obvious? We all think like that. But the actual fact is that Krishna is the center of everything. So when we do not like to recognize that Krishna is the supreme controller and that all our activities should be done for His pleasure, then we act for what we think will give us pleasure. It's very easy to act for Krishna's pleasure. We offer food to Krishna, we dress Krishna very nicely, we sing Krishna's names. Devotees, by doing this, Tushanti cha ramanti cha, they become fully satisfied and fully blissful. And by not doing so, we become, the more we become involved in sense gratification, personal sense gratification. Instead of offering food to Krishna, we think, what do I like to eat? Instead of offering flowers to Krishna, we offer them to our girlfriend. So in this way, we want sense gratification. As Srila Prabhupada explains, in such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. This is Srila Prabhupada's sociology course. You don't have to go and study in the university. 3 years 3 years, 4 years. You can have it right now. Complete analysis of the whole human society. Srila Prabhupada writes, in politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. To analyze that sentence, we might have to take 3 years. So it's a short course. It's a summation, a spiritual sociology course. But everything, what everyone is doing, politics, just like the politicians. I will uplift the country and vote for me, but then why are they spending so much money and time and putting so much effort? Do they really care that much for the country? They want the power, the name and fame, and the being the head of the country is the position. You can exploit others. For sense, it's ultimately for their own purpose. In social service, people like to be known as welfare workers. They like to be advertised. We are helping people. Altruism. That's social service, I guess. Doing good for others. philanthropy, and these are all philanthropy, giving money for good causes. Philanthropy especially means very rich people. They start some foundation, which they put in their own name usually, and then they give money to some good cause, just like there are foundations for the good causes of limiting the world population, promoting abortions and good causes like that. They think they're doing good. Civilizing the tribal people, these philanthropists, they send people to the forests and jungles to civilize the people and give them cigarettes and alcohol and modern education and all the things that people need to become part of the modern global family. And in the jungle, well, there won't be any jungle, they'll cut it down and build a McDonald's drive-in, and then the people will be happy. So everything is done for sense gratification. What they do in the name of social service, altruism, philanthropy, it's all ultimately meant for people, because they have no idea of what the actual purpose of life is. Therefore they do everything for sense gratification, either for their own sense gratification, or they think, I will help others by increasing their sense gratification. They have no idea actually how to help people. Now this is very controversial if I say this, and usually people hate me when I say it. But there was a nun who lived in Calcutta most of her life, who was very famous for helping people. But one of the main things she did was that people who are living on the street all their lives, she would send out her nuns to find out people who are dying on the street, and then they'd bring them into her home, and they could die in her home after spending their whole life on the street. And if they recovered, then they'd be out on the street again. So, what's the point? It doesn't really help anyone. Ultimately in religion, people go to church, some people go to church, not many people go to church. And they pray, Dear God, give me bread and a lot more too. Give me, give me, give me. People think that God is some big guy in the sky who, if you pray to him, there's no harm because he might be there, and if he's there, you can get something for nothing, so why not? Now I have the doctor's bills. In Switzerland, do you have to pay to go to the doctor? They have, is it? Yeah. So, when you pray God, please keep us healthy. I don't mind so much the pain, but the doctor's bill is too much. So, praying to God. In every religion, people pray to God. And eventually, but we believe in God and we'll go to heaven. And what is heaven? Some place where you can enjoy yourself forever. And even in salvation, people have the idea of becoming liberated from this world, but their idea is just to get rid of suffering. They have no idea of serving Krishna. So the idea that I will get free from suffering is again the same tint of sense gratification. So Srila Prabhupada explains this further. In the political field, the leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. There are many things which could be done to improve the society in various countries, but the politicians can't do it because the voters don't like it. Or the businessmen don't like it. So the politicians, they get voted if they say that when I come to power, I'm going to increase the taxes and cut the social services, which is what they usually do, then no one will vote for them. But they may have to do that for the good of the country, but they can only promise we're going to decrease the taxes and increase the social services. They always offer a better tomorrow, which they can never actually deliver. As soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense satisfaction, they dethrone the leaders. You see, they vote someone into power, and 4 years later, or whatever it is, they throw them out. And then another 4 years comes round again, and they throw them out again. So if they were so good, if they were actually capable of delivering what they promised, then why should they throw them out? But again and again the voters throw out the leaders because they're dissatisfied. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses, because actually they can't do it. It's not in their power to satisfy people, because people cannot be satisfied in this world. That's the illusion of this world, that people think I will be happy in this world, but actually no one's happy. And they think, oh, one leader will come, oh, he'll be good, he will fulfill, or she will be good, he or she or something in between will fulfill our sense gratification. But they can't do it. And so they vote next time. Okay, we'll show that guy. He cheated us. He or she already cheated us. So we'll show him, throw him out and get someone better. But they also fail to deliver the desired sense gratification. So the same is applicable in all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. That is the real problem. What is the main problem facing Switzerland today? What is it? Not enough money in the banks? Never enough. Terrorism, did it hit Switzerland yet? Didn't hit Switzerland yet. That's because all the terrorists, both the terrorists and the governments, they're fighting, they all have their money here, right? They're all the same actually. The terrorists, they take over, they get in power. If they get in, then they do the same thing as the governments they want to throw out. So they're all just rascals, beginning to end, upside down, top to bottom. So, AIDS, that's a problem facing Switzerland, right? Must be. Cancer, then traffic jams, no? Oh yeah, in the Alps, famous, right? Immigrants! Ah! Kill them all. Bring back Hitler. Here you have all these people doing yajnas. Tell Hitler to come back and get born in Switzerland this time. Immigrants. What shall we do about the immigrants? Well, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam, the real problem is, where are they immigrating from?
From everywhere.
From everywhere. That's not the problem. The real problem is that we're not serious about the real problems of life. The real problem is birth, death, old age and disease. You may think, well, I was born in Switzerland, and these people were born everywhere else, so why are they coming and disturbing us? But being born in Switzerland, that is a problem from the very beginning. And being born anywhere else, that's also a problem. The problem is getting born, and then dying, and in between is old age and death, old age and disease. And the problem is thinking, I am Swiss, and these people are not Swiss. That's the problem. The problem is not seeing that this material life is simply miserable. That is the problem. Thinking that this life is all in all. Thinking that anything in this material world can make us happy. When the whole history... Okay, now we're had a sociology class, now we're having a history class. An analysis of the history. The whole history. We'll do it in 1 or 2 sentences. Actually, Krishna does it in 2 words. Krishna is the most brilliant scholar. No need to go to university. You just take one Bhagavad Gita as it is, and you can see all the history, anthropology, sociology, psychology. Krishna gives it in 2 words. Dukhalayam ashashvatam. This material world is a place of misery, and everything here is temporary. That's it. That's all your university studies. Everything, complete. complete analysis of the whole material world in 2 words. Full of misery and temporary. But people don't see this. Pashyan api na pashyati. They see but they don't see. Everyone can see that this material world is miserable. But they think we'll just adjust it a little bit, throw out the immigrants and bring back Hitler and make our Switzerland better and everything will be good. We might even win some sports. Yeah, you have a tennis player, right? How do you pronounce his name? I only saw it written. Federer, I don't know. How is it pronounced? Federer. So he's the best in the world, right? I saw his name in Zurich airport when I arrived. His bank, according to the advertisement, is Swiss Credit Bank or something like that. Who knows? So, train all the young people up so they can be great tennis players. And make Switzerland great. And if you're really attached to Switzerland, you might get born again in Switzerland. Maybe it's one of those nice Swiss cows that end up in your Swiss sausages. There's no guarantee we'll get a human birth. Everything in this world is temporary, and even that guy, Federer, he also has to die. And he's getting old, right? Must be. I've seen his name around. How old is he? 30-something? 28. Getting towards the 30s. So, after some time he'll be finished, and then no one will ever... In the next generation, no one will ever heard of him. When I was a kid, there was Rod Laver. Who heard of Rod Laver? You heard of him.
He was Australian, not Britain.
Yeah, I know, but we had newspapers in Britain also.
But there was Fred Perry too.
No, we never had any good British.
Fred Perry.
You did? He was a British... It was before my time, I think. He was the big guy when I was a kid in tennis. Australian. And then after that there was some German guy. What was his name? Boris Becker, yeah. So, how many of you heard of Rod Laver, by the way? Before today. See, I'm teaching you some secular knowledge also. He was the great tennis star. When was it? Like the 1960s? Something like that? He doesn't know so well either. You see, he was so famous. Just like Federer, his name's always in the newspaper, so even me, I have no interest in tennis. I don't even know the rules of the game. But even I know his name. You see, I know the name of many Indian cricket players. I also don't know the rules of cricket, even though I'm from Britain. But just because everywhere you see their names, there's the... let me think now. Sachin. How can I forget his name? The most important man in the whole of India. Tendulkar, that's it. Sachin Tendulkar. Like that. So, they become so famous. And then again forgotten. Very quickly forgotten. Who heard of Mark Spitz? You're a big sportsman. You remember him? He was in the Olympics, very good looking. He won so many gold medals. Swimmer. When was that? 1970, something like that? 74?
Probably 70.
74 maybe, something like that. See, he was so famous. His name was on all the newspapers. Now, no one ever heard of him now. So like that. Who heard of Mahatma Gandhi? Now everyone's heard of him. But there will come a time when no one ever heard of him. See, that's the material world. Coming and going. Coming and going. Coming and going. Even the big famous people, in course of time, they all become forgotten. Everyone is simply suffering. So, the real problem facing Switzerland and everywhere else is not being serious about the problems of life, not seeing that this material world is miserable and temporary, and trying to find a solution to that. We think, well, if we think, oh, there's no solution, what can you do about it? But actually we can. We can get out of this cycle of birth and death. And that is what is taught in Srimad Bhagavatam and in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, so Prabhupada's purport continued. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification. This is revolutionary. No one in the world thinks of that. You see, just like we're saying, terrorists or militants and governments, but they all basically have the same aim, which is sense gratification. They all did, just in different ways. Communists, capitalists, fascists, they're all fighting over different ways to organize the society for sense gratification. So that people can, in various ways, gratify their senses. But here the Bhagavatam says that one should not even desire to live for that purpose, because it defeats the real purpose of life, which is to understand that we're not the body. There is no actual pleasure through the body. We are spiritual beings. We are already transcendental to the body. We have nothing to do actually with this body. We simply have to understand our spiritual nature as eternal servants of Krishna and act for His pleasure. And then all the problems are solved. But no one's serious about that. They don't even think about it. So, one should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. That makes sense, doesn't it? Simply put, in terms of the eating, it said one should eat to live and not live to eat. So that's true for all the senses. We should not indulge the senses in what we think is joyful, but for the senses, enjoyment for the senses. But the senses, what is required for them? To preserve the body so that we can inquire into the absolute truth. Because the body is made of senses which also require a certain amount of satisfaction, there are regulative directions for satisfaction of such senses. In other words, the senses should be nourished according to directions in scripture. For instance, we may like to eat so many things, but we should eat only food which is offered to Krishna, and only at regulated times. The idea of taking snacks all the time. In modern life, there's all the time taking snacks, coffee break, smoking, then taking some soft drinks, hard drinks, all the time. Something is required for the tongue, practically constantly. Chewing gum, always there should be something. But this is not human life, this is pig life. The pig is always wanting to just go on eating all day. So people who want to live like pigs can get the body of a pig. But human life is meant for transcending our animal propensities. The senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. This is revolutionary in modern society. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propaganda for family planning. But foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth. How can we overcome the desire for sense gratification? If we're so much absorbed that how can I fulfill the purpose of life? How can I serve Krishna? Then the thought of sense gratification won't even come. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. So, I don't have time now otherwise to explain each or to discuss each line of this verse could take many hours, but I'll read the translation of the verse again. Life's desire should never be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So this direction, this is not, as I said before, it's not a dogmatic religious injunction that you just believe it. We don't say you just believe. Just consider. This is any person in any religious tradition can understand that this is serious theology. This is applicable to anyone who is serious to understand God. Religion is not supposed to be some part-time hobby. And it's not supposed to be that we simply supplicate God for the sake of what we can get out of Him. But we should be so much desirous of Him that we have no material desires. Of course, it's not very easy to come to that stage immediately, but at least theoretically or philosophically, we should understand that engagement in sense gratification simply causes us suffering. It's petty, it's futile, it's animalistic. Do you know all these words? Petty. Petty means insignificant, trivial. Futile means pointless. We should understand, what is this? Chasing after something very small and insignificant. Let us rather try to understand that which is vast and significant. What is that? There is one question in the Upanishads that Kasmad Vigyate Sarvam Idam Vigyatam Bhavati. This question comes. What is that by knowing which everything else is known? This kind of question should be asked, isn't it? What is that one subject which by knowing everything else is known? Who's asking questions like that? We have so many topics to discuss. But what is that one subject which by knowing everything else will be known, everything will be fulfilled? Here, actually in this verse, which I read today, the answer to that question is not given. It's just saying that we should seek we should ask this kind of question and pursue this kind of knowledge. And what that absolute truth is described in the next verse. So if you want to know what it is, you can buy the Srimad Bhagavatam, which the whole Bhagavatam is meant for describing what is that absolute truth that we should dedicate our lives to understanding. It's not a small subject, but briefly it can be said. In one word, Krishna. Krishna, we say a subject. Well, Krishna is the supreme truth. Taken as a subject, Krishna is the supreme truth. But as Prabhupada writes in the purport to the next verse, the absolute truth is both subject and object. And there is no qualitative difference there. So it's not such easy topics to understand. But it becomes easy by chanting Hare Krishna and by giving up engagement in sense gratification. As long as our life is dedicated toward trying to enjoy this world, we cannot understand Krishna. Hare Krishna. Oh yeah, so I started off the class talking about Radha's love for Krishna. So, alright, that's toward the end. That's the ultimate subject of Bhagavatam. We should begin here. Begin here. Get the basis very strong. Because otherwise, if we try to go up to that without having done this part properly, there's no entrance there. There's no entrance. What is that? Jogir Dhyan Nirvishesh Gyan Shekana in that Paistiti. The Bhaktivinoda Thakur says this the meditation of the yogis and the impersonal knowledge that has there's no entrance into the gopis lila of anything. Only pure devotional service can help us to enter there. So we should hear about Krishna and the gopis, but first study this part very seriously and internalize it in our lives. Then gradually we can go to such high topics. Not too quickly. So any question about this or comment? Question about the spiritual subject. Don't ask me about Rod Laver. All I know is that he was a tennis player and he was from Australia. I don't know anything else about him. Okay.
Hare Krishna, thanks a lot for your wonderful explanation of Bhagavatam.
It was wonderful.
Wonderful.
It created wonder.
It was marvelous.
It created marvel. Okay. Just please wait. Now I'm taking a question over here, and I'll take this lady's question afterward.
As per my little understanding of Sri Bhagavatam rejects all other religions except Sanatana Dharma. So how?
Your understanding is that Bhagavatam rejects all religions except Sanatana Dharma. Well, before you go on, I want to make a comment on that, because you're going to make a question based on this statement. But that statement needs a little honing. There's a word honing, which means fine-tuning, we'd say. Sanatana Dharma is often understood among Hindus to mean Hinduism. And when we say all other religions, then we often think of Islam, Christianity, Rastafarians, and so on. But when Krishna says Sarva Dhamman Parityaja, Krishna is not a proponent of Hindutva. Krishna doesn't say, give up Islam and become a Hindu. That's not when Krishna says Sarva Dhamman Parityaja. That's not what Krishna says. He says to give up all other, Srila Prabhupada translates this, is to give up all other occupations than that of serving Krishna. So it's not a sectarian statement. Srila Prabhupada sometimes said that Christians, if they properly follow Christianity, then that's Vaishnavism. Or if they properly follow Islam, that's also Vaishnavism. Of course, Srila Prabhupada also said that if they're proper followers of Christianity, then they shouldn't be eating meat. But the point is that Srila Prabhupada, and Vyasadeva wanted to teach Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana, scientific understanding of the principles of what we would call religious knowledge, or knowledge of God. It's not a sectarian endeavor. The point is to understand God, not to identify oneself with any religion as such. So what is your question?
You almost answered it. So my question was then, how do people from other religion like a good Muslim or good Christian can reach Krishna?
Can they reach Krishna? Can a good Christian or a good Muslim reach Krishna? Well, as I said, I hinted at that, any good Christian or anyone who's a serious practitioner of any religious process, if they read this, they can understand that this is not dogmatic religion. It is a principle by which anyone who's serious to understand God, they have to adopt this if they're going to attain success. So, if they're a good Christian and if they're actually serious to know God, and they read this Srimad Bhagavatam, they can immediately understand that what Jesus said, that I have many things to teach you, but you're not ready to understand. That there's more understanding. Read the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Any sincere theist if they are confronted with this, they will understand that this is first-class theism. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadhyasya Yatonvyaditarataschate Svavijnasvarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kaviye Murkinti Yat Suryaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinmayo Yatra Trisargo Vrisha Dhavna Svena Sadani Rasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. Srila Prabhupada's translations. O my Lord Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Anyone who is serious about God realization, if presented with this, they will understand that this is a description of the same person who Jesus spoke of, and they will take it seriously. And we find actually all over the world that many serious Christians, especially monks, those who are in meditative traditions, and nuns, they appreciate these books very much, although they don't publicly say so. But sometimes they privately tell our devotees that they're reading these books and appreciating them, and they say, some of them have said that we understand that actually there's more knowledge than in our own tradition. But anyway, we're following this all our lives, but they appreciate this very much. Srila Prabhupada said that just like people go from India to America for higher education in secular topics, why? Because they want knowledge. The knowledge is not Indian or American, but if what they're studying, just like for instance they might be studying engineering, so the topic is applicable anywhere in the world, but if in America there's better education for that, then they go there. So in the same way, the topic is the science of the absolute truth of Godhead. So if one is serious to understand that, then he should be willing to accept it from whatever source it comes from. Instead of being, if you think, no, I'm in India and I'll only study in India, then you may not get the same level of knowledge that you get in America. Because the educational institutions are better developed there. So in the same way, if we're serious to understand God, then we should take this knowledge. It's given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, please. There's a question here.
Finden Sie soziales Engagement ohne Sinnesbefriedigung nicht wichtig? Weil im Christentum sagen Sie, wenn man sich nicht sozial engagiert, hat man das Leben auch verfehlt. Also wenn man nichts tut. Also ich finde das so stark schwarz-weiß.
So question much is that social work, if it's done not for your own sense gratification, but truly, like seriously, for
social work is done seriously, not for personal sense gratification.
Yeah, if this is done, is it not also some value in it?
Is there not some value in it? Well, social work should be there. It's just like the ants cooperate with each other, right? In ant society, they cooperate with each other, so humans can also do that. If someone is sick, there should be some system in human society to tend for them. Yeah, that should be there, but It's not the ultimate goal of life. Like I say, the ants, they also help each other. So, if this kind of thing, it should just be there automatically. There should be some system in humans. But because human society is so selfish, therefore someone who takes the trouble to help someone else becomes praised as a great person. But actually it should be, it's normal. For instance, in traditional societies all over the world, there are no old age homes. There are no pensions. Because automatically, as people grow older, their children look after them at home. Old age home, you may think we're helping the old people. There's no system. There's no need for helping the old people, because that was automatically done in society. It's automatically there. Yeah.
I knew a woman who helped the old Eltern.
Yeah.
Ich kannte eine Frau, die half der alten Mutter, aber diese alte Mutter brauchte Hilfe die ganze Nacht, so sie konnte nicht mehr ihren Beruf ausüben, und deshalb hat sie ins Pflegeheim gebracht und dort aber jeden Tag gesucht. Ist das nicht die bessere, ist das auch eine gute Lösung, finde ich?
Then?
We can privately discuss it more if needed, because the question was answered.
I already answered it, is it? She's just saying the same point again.
Personally speak more if
Okay. The best welfare work is to give people knowledge by which they can become free from suffering eternally. We can help the old, still they will die. Then they will get born again. We can give education to the uneducated, then they can emigrate to Switzerland. Oh, that's not a good idea. The Swiss won't like that. But improving one's material situation is not much of an improvement. It's just like we're all prisoners in this material world. In a prison, someone may be tied up with iron chains, or someone may be tied up with gold chains. But the result is the same. Or you may be in prison and you're given, every day you're beaten 10 times with a cane, and someone else is beaten 20 times. So you may think, well, I'm in a better situation, and you might found a society for helping the prisoners. That those who are on 20 lashes, they get their lashes reduced to 10 lashes. But still it's suffering. So the best welfare work is to give the prisoners the knowledge by which they can become good citizens and not be in prison at all. Better than improving the situation of the prisoner is to reform them so that they no longer have to be in prison. So this material world is a place of suffering. It's a prison for those who do not want to serve Krishna. So if we teach people to serve Krishna, then they'll be free from all suffering forever. And simply teaching them not to call the gods names so that they get their lashes reduced from 20 to 10, that is not actually helping them. Alright, so I'll finish there. It's getting a little late, and what happens if the lecture goes too long, then people don't like to come back again because they have to rush off. So please take your prasadam and rush off to wherever you may be going and come back again next week. Hare Krishna. At midday I spoke to the Tamil community and asked them to take Bhagavad Gita as it is, those who don't have. So let's try again. Although generally we find that the non-Indians are less pious or less willing to do that. But who does not have Bhagavad Gita as it is in their home? Please kindly raise your hand if you would be so kind as to do so. Everyone has? Or they don't make the effort to lift their... So it's time for Srimad Bhagavatam. Really?
All these books.
You can take these books also, yeah. I was just reading today, Prabhupada said, in the Vyasa Puja book, a quote from Prabhupada, that we should go on writing books. There should be thousands of books. He's talking about his disciples writing also. And Prabhupada also told me to write books. So I guess someone should take them. Yeah, if you don't have Srimad Bhagavatam set in your home, then you should get... If you have Bhagavad Gita in your home, and you're actually reading it, then definitely you'll want to get Srimad Bhagavatam. So, can anyone bless my day by taking it? Who has Srimad Bhagavatam set in their home?
Only 2 cantos.
Only 2 cantos. In which language?
In German.
In German.
In Sanskrit.
Sanskrit and German. Yeah. So why don't you get the rest of the set?
It's a good idea.
Yes.
To get the rest of them.
Yeah.
But I'm not allowed to read the 11th or 10th before I've gone through all the...
No, well you take them all and then you have to set a goal for yourself. Self-improvement. You see, now we're having a personality development course. We had sociology and history and now personality development. Get a set of Bhagavatams and set yourself a goal. I have to read these books. And actually once you get started, it's like cycling up a hill. In Switzerland you know about this, right? Lots of hills.
Definitely.
But when you get to the top, it becomes easy. So in the beginning, it's a little difficult because we're not used to studying such deep subject matter. But it's just a little bit difficult, but then it gets such that you want to read again and again and again. Once you read the whole Bhagavatam, the first thing you'll do as soon as you're finished is go back to the beginning and start again.
But in terms of, I still would have a question if you like.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In terms of self-development and what you said before about sense gratification, I still have a problem there. Let me try.
We all do.
Let me try. Prakrate kriya manani gunai karmani sarvasha ahamkara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. So there is a conflict for me. And everything is done by nature or by structure anyway, then what is it that I should contribute to my development?
You don't say that just before when you're hungry and you take a meal.
No.
You don't say, now the food should jump into my mouth. Right?
Well, now I don't get you.
When you're hungry, you don't think that automatically the food will jump in my mouth. You don't invoke this verse to avoid eating. You only invoke it to avoid surrendering to Krishna. That means you're a rascal. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Namang dushkritino mudha prapadyante naradhamaha maya pahrita jnana asurang bhavamashrita. There are 4 kinds of rascals who don't surrender to Krishna. One is the person who thinks he knows a lot, but he invokes that knowledge to avoid surrendering to Krishna. So it's better not to be that kind of person. Otherwise you don't get Krishna conscious. So study these books in a manner to surrender to Krishna, not to avoid Krishna. And then, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Then Krishna will give you the intelligence to understand all these subject matters so that you can surrender to Him. It depends on our attitude. Even these books, if we read them with the idea of how can I avoid Krishna, then we won't find Krishna. In every line, every word, in every letter, even in the space between the letters is Krishna. But there's a way in which we can read it and fool ourselves that we're actually trying to be Krishna conscious, but we're at the same time trying to avoid Krishna. So we have to be very sincere, and then Krishna will reveal Himself to us. Hare Krishna. I'll finish there. Please take a set of Bhagavatams. Krishna will be pleased. You will make progress in Krishna consciousness. And I've also written some books. And there are CDs of lectures here. If anyone would like to take them, please take them. and you will be benefited spiritually. Anyone else said a Bhagavatam? Improve your life in a manner that you will not do by getting a new TV, a new car, a new house, a new wife, or any such thing. Get a set of Srimad Bhagavatams. Your life will be better than ever before in millions of lifetimes. Any volunteers? Anyone want to take a Bhagavad Gita? Give us a gift to someone you already have in your home.
Actually, most of the devotees sitting, they already are initiated. Most of them have the Bhagavatam.
Already, the Navina Nirada already got them, right? Well, you can take. That's what I'm saying. You can.
Regular service at the temple.
Okay.
Most of the devotees sitting here.
Okay.
I guess the final answer coming up.
All right. So, how about taking a Bhagavad Gita to give to someone? Shastra Dan. Suggestion? Anyone? Any volunteers? No? Okay. I'm afraid of.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
You said gifting of Bhagavad Gita to someone. I have gifted it only to my grandparents, my in-laws, and whom I know would read it. Suppose I gift it to someone
and they don't read it.
No, they're not so respectful towards the book.
But still you should give it. These books have their own way of working. Just like the first book I read of Prabhupada's, it was in someone's house. They didn't read it. I read it. So it's good to give these. Generally, books, these spiritual books should be given to people who respect them. But these books have their own way of working. Krishna is personally present. He is Bhagavad Gita. And we find that all over the world, people they take the books, often they themselves don't read it. Or they might, what happens often just by the book being in their home, then people start to become attracted to it. Or it might happen after 5 years, or 10 years, or 20 years. Or they might give it away to some second-hand bookshop and someone buys it and then they become a devotee. So distributing these books is always auspicious. Don't think that someone has to be practically a pure devotee and then you give them a book of Prabhupada's. Give to it. Distribute as widely as possible to everyone. So, Hare Krishna. Yeah, I'll finish now. You'd like to take another Bhagavad Gita, give to someone else?
I don't know many people here, but I have.
You can make more friends.
Yes.
By giving away Bhagavad Gitas to people. Once I was preaching to someone and he said, well, there are no devotees here in our town. So what should I do? I said, distribute Prabhupada's books and people will come. So he did that and people came. Then he wrote me another letter, this many years ago. He said, now I'm losing all my friends.